What is up, everybody? It's Rev time. Today I wanted to talk about running a boost pedal, either pre-overdrive distortions or post-overdrive distortion. It's come up a lot in discussions, and I will say, in my humble opinion, I prefer to run pre. So in other words, run a boost pedal into an overdrive pedal, because I always, in my case, I want more maybe saturation or gain by hitting the input of the overdrive pedal or distortion or whatever it may be a bit harder to give me that kind of more thing. Now, if you run it on the other side, the post side, you're not going to necessarily get more saturation. You're going to get more volume. And it's kind of to each his own, his or her own. But in my case, like right now, I'm using my G2 into the Revv D25 really clean. Like the 25 is like dialed really clean. I've got the G2 in the blue aggression mode or drive mode with the gain all the way up. Now I can turn the volume down on the guitar. And get dynamics that way. But what if I want more saturation above that? Then I'm going to need to hit it from the front end. So in this case, you saw what I did in real time at the top of the video. I was kind of dialing the two. So in this case, using my tilt boost into the Revv G2, I felt like as I kept hitting it, it needed less top end. So I employed the tight switch. And then on this side, I pretty much left it alone. I think what I'll do is I'll let you guys hear how it's dialed right now, and then maybe I'll dial these exactly the same so you can hear the difference between pre and post. But for now, it's like I want more, so I can go from this to this. It's not necessarily more volume, but it is more saturation or gain. Now, if I can go ahead and just, you know what, let's just do that. I'm gonna put the tight switch back to neutral. Let's dial these exactly the same, as close as I can get them. just for reference. So now here's the bass tone, which is the G2. Here's the boost into the G2. Still not louder at all, just more saturation, right? I can run a boost after the G2. Now it's louder. There is a bit more top end. And that's always going to be, like, I could probably fix it so it didn't do that. I could keep kind of turning the tilt EQ to the right, which is going to cut tops. But at the end of the day, you can hear right away the difference. Like, here's pre. More saturation. And here's post. It's louder, but there isn't necessarily more saturation. And I guess that's the whole point, is to talk about the idea of, well, it's not necessarily one way is the wrong way and the other way is the right way. It's more based on, well, what do you want? In my humble opinion, in my case, I always want someplace to go as far as the amount of gain or saturation is concerned. So I tend to gravitate towards wanting boost pedals to the front end of overdrive or distortion pedals. If you need a volume boost without creating more saturation, then you would absolutely want to use a boost pedal on the post side or after all of your distortion, overdrive, whatever it may be, effects. You're going to get a volume boost. Now, we can get into what happens when you run a boost into, say, the effects loop of an amp, but now you have to think of, okay, not only are you post your effects pedals, so your post overdrives, your post all of your modulation, but you're also post the preamp section of your amplifier. And you can obviously put something in the effects loop that is post the preamp section and get a level boost, but then you could end up, if you ran too much, overdriving the input to the power section of the amplifier you have, and that's a completely different deal. But I think the overall concept will still apply based on dynamics, not necessarily EQ, because that's a different deal, but based on like dynamics and input, if it's pre, for the most part, it's going to create more harmonic saturation or distortion, or however you perceive that, whatever you want to call it, that's what it does. If it's post, then it's going to create more actual volume. That's the idea. And then when you get into EQ, it's like, well, EQ is going to react differently post than it would pre. Like in this case, you know, these are dialed pretty much really, really close. There's a difference in what happens here on the post side. It feels like it's adding more top end, and I could still cut top end here and make that happen. But if we didn't have, say we don't have tilt boosts with a tilt EQ and they're just straight ahead boost pedals, it's the same concept. One's going to create more saturation at the input. At the output, it's going to create more volume. And then whatever anomalies happen on the low end or even the top end are going to be less controllable, but it's the same concept. So just to, once again, show you, here's dead clean using the D25. Here's the G2 in the blue drive mode. The gain is all the way up. And I haven't, you know, this pedal's dialed in a way that I would say is unadorned, but here's how that sounds by itself. If I run boost to the input, more saturated, and you guys can't feel it, but I can feel that there's a bit more compression there. As opposed to boost on the post side or on the output. Absolutely louder, there's not more saturation, there's not more gain, but there is more volume. Now I can keep turning the tilt EQ to the right to cut top end. So it's essentially the same tone that was happening with the G2, just louder. But that's, you know, once again, I can do that with my tilt boost with the tilt EQ, but if you didn't have that, the concept, as I mentioned before, is still the same. On the front end, more saturation, not necessarily a big volume jump. On the back end or post or after, you're going to get a volume jump for sure, and that's why you would do that. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you guys use boost pedals, whether you like them pre or post. I always appreciate you hearing from you, and I will always endeavor to chime in and respond to all of your comments. And as always, I really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.